articles, 3 articles were in Truthout. One of them from another. Truthout is an obviously Indie Media Award honoree, and we love those guys. Sometimes they can be a little hit or miss. They are doing a massive fundraising drive right now, and you'll see that when I put this up on screen now. They must raise $37,000 in the next 4 days. They've been sounding the alarm,
asking for your financial support.
Yes, Bernie certainly would want them to be around as well. They were big advocates for his campaign. But here's where we live in dark dystopian times, folks. Now, this was written by the KFF Health News, which is the Kaiser Foundation, but it's not connected to Kaiser Permanente Healthcare, because I dug deep into this to figure out, is this like a health insurance company effectively putting out propaganda? But no, it's actually kind of the opposite. It's a watchdog agency inside Kaiser that's designed and there to hold the rest of the company accountable in a way. So we'll get 5% of the crap that they're doing, but I'll take it. But this is, wow. I read this and I was like, holy shit, we have to cover this because I didn't see this anywhere else. And this show is called, how did we miss that? So, California, yeah, thank you. California schools are being urged to create heat plans on a warming planet. Well,
yep.
A new policy brief offers a series of recommendations on how schools can become more heat resilient. And it's kind of funny because my kids' schools don't have air conditioning, and I don't live in a heat state necessarily. I'm on the East Coast. I'm in New Jersey. And when it goes above 93 or 94 degrees, might even be above 90, they actually close schools early and send my kids home early, which is a huge disruption on parents and workplaces and all kinds of other situations, arrangements, and it's a pain in the ass. So you could see there at
Milk was a terrible choice.
Yes, it was. Milk was a bad choice. The Anza Magnet School had 114 degree temperature there. And that was, of course, Getty Images, and everyone has to pay a ton of money to put Getty Images up. Please don't take my stream down, Getty. Okay. So as hot days become more extremely common, this was written again by the Kaiser lady. As hot days become more extremely common, a California education researcher, the California education researchers are urging that school districts be required to develop heat plans to keep students safe, just as they have policies for severe storms and active shooters. Jesus. Policy brief published last month by the UCLA Luskin Center for Innovation. That is a complete front for I don't even know what. But they offer a series of recommendations on how education and building codes can help schools become more heat resilient in the face of global climate change. I don't want to say warming, but State Senator Caroline Menjivar, who is a Democrat, of course, introduced legislation in this year requiring schools to have heat plans by 2027. And another bill would make it easier for schools to create more shaded spaces. That's really important. So,
Safe shaded spaces.
Safe
spaces.
Shaded safe. A safe space for all.
Spaces
Obviously,
for safe shade. Sorry.
The California Education Board wasn't set up to think about climate change, but now that climate change is a reality, virtually every sector is going to have to think about it. Yes. Center's recommendations include steps such as setting an indoor temperature limit, documenting the air conditioning and shade infrastructure of each school, and investing in shade and greenery for play areas. And the brief also calls out areas needing more research, such as the safest indoor temperature range.
Desert Mantis in chat said there's enough shady places in California.
Well, no, there's a lot of shady people. There's not a lot of shady places.
Well, the places filled with shady people, I would say, are shady. So therefore,
Well, like they say
shady
here,
places.
the best way to keep kids cool is perhaps the most obvious, which is providing shade, which can reduce the heat stress experience throughout the day by 25 to 35%. Except when it's 114 degrees.
Like, what were those?
Shade doesn't help. Shade doesn't help
What was
114
that, like,
degrees.
Do you remember? Hold on. Do you remember the little bus stop shade thing that was a meme not that long ago? The, like, slightly curved blue mesh thing?
Right?
With, like, a little light. Like a little solar light on it or whatever.
Yep.
Just attached to a pole that cost how much? It was, like, some crazy price on that.
Some stupid number, right? But it requires reconfiguring playgrounds to make them cooler. Okay, and that's a pediatrician and environmental researcher at Mount Sinai in New York City. Definitely very qualified to talk about California schools and how they need to rearrange their playgrounds. In addition to shade, swapping heat-absorbing materials like asphalt and rubber for grass and wood chips. Hey, lady, Perry Sheffield, I don't know if you're a lady or a dude, but I'm guessing a dude, but hey, Perry Sheffield, they've got a bit of a water problem out in California. So adding more grass and adding more trees to an area where they don't have water, kind of a problem. Now, canopy shades and fans and water, mist machines and that type of stuff, better. Definitely, there are ways to do this. What?
Oh, just, that uses water too. But
but not nearly the amount of water that anything else that they're doing uses. It's a big savings.
Native shade plants, large cacti, and the like.
Sure. So the more we can encourage play as well as physical activity, the healthier our kids are going to be. So figuring out a way to do that safely is really key. Yes. We also need the fuckers to go outside. I spent all weekend with my kids. We need them outside. They need to be playing outside. On a
but
playground.
That's where the cancer-causing sun is at.
That's why they said we need to have shade provided and we need to keep them fucking hydrated at 114 degrees. But the little buggers need to be outside.
Just lather them in sunscreen.
That's right. They need to be, in non-toxic cancer-causing sunscreen.
Remember,
yes, what?
Do you remember Gak from Nickelodeon? Do you remember that?
No, I'm too old for that.
Like the slime and Gak. Okay. Well, you need to just make like a waterfall of sun lotion outside your door for your kids to run through on their way out the door.
So they get slimed like Double Dare.
Right, yeah.
Double Dare sliming. I do.
Exactly.
I'm old enough to know Double Dare. Okay. Yeah. So of course they want to encourage outdoor play, which we do too, and keep the little buggers outside, like I said. But at the same time, canopy, safety, hydration. On a playground in the San Fernando Valley, she once measured 145-degree asphalt and 162-degree rubber. Hot enough to cause a third-degree burn in seconds. Christ. Yeah, seriously. Hot water can burn in less than 20 seconds. I remember there was a famous Warner Brothers Tweety Bird and Sylvester.
Let me show you something.
162-degree rubber. Can you imagine your kid going and climbing on 162-degree rubber and coming home with third-degree fucking burns? This is literally a Fire Marshal
Bill sketch.
Let me tell you something.
That's what this is. Let me show you something. Did you know?
Third-degree burns. California already has millions of dollars of grant funding available for greening schoolyards and increasing tree canopy, such as the urban and community forestry grants through the Cal Fire that set a goal to shade at least 30% of school campuses. Yeah. To help schools and make best use of funding for extra trees, Turner and her grad student, Morgan Rogers, are modeling how increasing the tree canopy to 30% can affect heat stress. They'll compare different tree configurations like dispersed or clustered and hope to issue recommendations this fall. That's nice. Legislators in Sacramento are also looking at amending state building codes to make it easier for schools to install shade structures. Currently, the rules require that an additional 20% of the budget be spent on any new construction or renovation to make an accessible path to the completed project. Okay. The bill would add an exception for freestanding shade structures. Well, that's good. Schools would still be required to meet accessibility requirements, but installing a shade structure wouldn't trigger additional construction. That's what we're asking, not to be exempted for those. Well, look, we just put up some big umbrellas where we are. Instead, we were talking about putting an awning or like some kind of permanent structure, and in the end, we just got some
sail.
Some massive umbrellas that were like a couple of $100 for our HOA, and boom, we're good. We got huge swath of shaded area, but shade only does so much. But they were excited to see new UCLA research. Yeah, eggheads usually are excited to see new research. Heat plans are going to be completed until 2025, implementation in 27. Our kids are suffering right now. They need help now. They're baking in these schools right now. Program is working with 35 schools and community centers in Phoenix also. That's also bad. Schools outside California are also reckoning with the heat. Researchers at Arizona State partnered with public health experts and school leaders last spring to develop guidelines for heat-ready schools. Why have we not been doing this for 30 years?
Yeah.
Like, we've had 100+ days in Death Valley, San Fernando Valley for decades. And we knew this was coming, and we still have had no plan. It's like beyond head exploding kind of shit, right? Preparing for the warming climate is front of mind, or top of mind, which is my least favorite corporate phrase ever, top of mind. It doesn't even make sense. For Principal Brad Rumble at Esperanza Elementary School in Los Angeles, the school's heat resilience efforts started with filling empty tree wells in front of the campus in 2014, and now the school boasts a shaded courtyard and a native plant garden. It takes years to grow trees like that, right? Courtesy of a grant from the district.
Yeah, but yes.
It helps.
No, you're good.
It sure does.
1 year ago.
Dun, 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 dun. Yes. And donate to help them raise their 37,000.
Roe v. Wade. That they didn't. That Democrats could have codified at any time, and didn't.
Yeah. KFF. Well, yeah, but somebody has to report on the fact that Democrats didn't do it either. KFF Health News is a national newsroom that produces in-depth journalism about health issues and is one of the core operating programs at KFF, an independent source of health policy research, polling, and journalism. And the Kaiser Foundation is a nonprofit. It is funded, I believe, mostly by the Kaiser family. That is the KFF. It's Kaiser Family Foundation. Similar to, like, the Ford, but it's not a CIA front, and it's not a health insurance company. Though the health insurance company funds it, these people are not beholden to anything in the insurance company, and there's total disconnect, according to everything that I've read. And I tried to dig to see if there was corruption here. There's not, at least that I can find.
Kaiser Permanente teaching nurses heat stroke is going to happen more at 11.
I couldn't believe this one. Governor Greg Abbott. Dude doesn't have to do any hard labor and never has. I don't believe he is in wheelchair bound. Solidarity with our disabled brothers and sisters, but this is ridiculous. As the governor signs a bill axing construction workers' water breaks amid record heat. Thanks. Texas is already the worst state in the country for work-related heat deaths, and this is from, again, Truthout and Sharon Zhang. That would be a double in the media award honoree article, because Sharon is an honoree herself separately from Truthout. Thank you. So that we've got our construction workers sitting there. And again, there's our
1 year ago.
Yes. Right. So, and of course, Truthout is a little shit-libby, and I'll be the first to admit that, though they are honorees. Far right, Governor Greg Abbott. That was unnecessary. We know that Most Republican governors in Texas are far right. Thanks for that. He signed a bill last week that nullifies local laws mandating water and heat breaks for construction workers, as well as work-related heat deaths as work-related heat deaths in the state are rising and temperatures are hitting record highs. The provision is part of the bill so-called the quote-unquote Death Star bill by its opponents, which nullifies a host of local regulations that enact additional protections for workers, among other things. That's nice. The part addressing construction workers would bar cities and counties from passing new regulations and overturns current regulations that mandate water breaks for certain workers. I need a Jimmy going, what the F and F? Are you kidding me? Like, that's what this is.
What?
Come on, man.
The effing F? Are you kidding me?
Cities like Austin and Dallas have laws ensuring that construction workers are provided a 10-minute break every 4 hours to drink water and get out of the sun. This bill would overturn that requirement. Why? The law comes as heat-related deaths at work are expected to worsen due to the climate crisis. Indeed, in the days following the bill's signing by Abbott, a record heat wave hit large swaths of the state, threatening the state's power grid. In some places, the heat index topped 120 degrees. So I'm guessing that Texas at some point will catch up to California and also start putting heat plans in place for their schools.
Ooh, we gonna put some heat trees. So we got our own spaces for safe shade.
Right. So other places broke heat records.
Ours are gonna be bigger.
Austin, shout out to Joe Rogan and Tom Segura. Austin set an all-time record for heat. Segura set an all-time record for heat in the month of June, while Junction, west of Austin, hit its all-time high of 110 degrees. Texas is already the worst state in the country for worker deaths due to high heat, according to the Texas Tribune, which is totally gone shit, Libby, by the way. They used to be awesome. And then their editor left. They brought in a new editor, and it just went to the dogs, and I don't even quote them anymore. But according to them, at least 42 workers died from heat exposure in the state between 2011 and 2021. BLS shows. Not BLM, but Bureau of Labor Statistics. And workers say this doesn't encompass all heat-related deaths, since they're often attributed to something other than the heat. Yeah, it's probably like stroke or heart attack or dehydration often. And this is what OSHA is saying. Heat-related deaths will certainly rise as a consequence of the new law, unions have said. OSHA recommends outdoor workers drink 8 ounces of water every 20 minutes when working in the heat to prevent heat-related illness. Well, they're certainly not going to get the time to do that now, are they?
Nope.
So, Ana Gonzalez, the Texas AFL-CIO Deputy Director of Policy and Politics, told the Texas Tribune, quote, "Construction is a deadly industry. Whatever the minimum protection is, it can save a life. We're talking about a human right. We will see more deaths, especially in Texas's high temperatures." So, as conditions rapidly worsen due to the climate crisis and a result of declining standards for outdoor laborers, advocates have long said that climate justice is worker justice. Yes. Think about like the people in the fields that are actually like picking stuff. Mild summer temperatures are becoming more and more scarce. The state is expected to be 3 degrees warmer and on average by 2036 than it used to be in the 1950s. This is going to lead to a doubling in the number of 100-degree days by 2036 compared to the last 2 decades or so. Jesus Christ. So current heat waves are already straining the state's electrical grid. If the grid fails at any point, that would create even further issues for workers seeking a reprieve from the heat, and also impact a lot more workers that are currently not suffering from any of that. Put the entire town, city, state into it. So again, this is about their 1 year ago. So they're
1 year ago.
There's our friend.
Right.
There's our friend Sharon. Support her. Support Truthout. She also has written stories for Pacific Standard and New Republic, but she basically exclusively writes for Truthout. She's great, really good on labor. She occasionally has a stink. You know, everyone has an occasional stinker. We do too, but I tremendously respect her work and use her as one of the guides and sources that I trust to give me a perspective and a base as to where we probably should be close to, if not slightly adjusted off of. But she's usually pretty close to the mark.
These people.
Well, was that Jerry? Jerry, come on.
No,
Who are these
Mark
people?
Norman.
It ain't getting any better, folks, because we're failing our elders. And this was another exclusive by Eleanor Bader. People over 50 who now account for approximately half of the unhoused population in the United States.
Yeah.
Seniors are a growing portion of unhoused. And I personally have had some pretty close experience with this. Became friends with somebody on Facebook, and she is currently looking for housing as a senior and has gone through all kinds of trials and tribulations. And according to this, since January 22, nearly 25,000 households have been denied their right to counsel in housing court and left to face their eviction alone. Right, and that was in Brooklyn. But yeah, this is not a fun story, and I'm not going to go into this super long one, but just to say, how bad is it that people over age 50 currently comprise approximately 50% of the unhoused population, which is up from 37% in just 20 years and 11% in 40 years? I mean, we are really failing our people. You know, the number of homeless people over age 65 will triple by 2030 in major U.S. cities like Boston, LA, and New York. You know, there are reasons for this, which is skyrocketing rents, and record profits, the end of the COVID eviction moratorium, ageism, a weak social safety net, an insufficient supply of affordable housing, and soaring medical debt. Yeah, while they keep building $1 million mini mansions. Yep. You know, and then there's our overall economic system, which they're using housing the same way mining companies have used the earth, and are attempting to extract wealth from our communities, just as there are environmental impacts from strip mining, there are environmental impacts from wealth mining. You know, many shelters don't allow pets. For many vulnerable people, animals are their only family. In addition, receiving Section 8 subsidies are bound by stiff regulations promulgated by HUD that bar them from taking in an aging relative. In fact, guidelines stipulate that a guest, no matter if it's mom, dad, a grandparent, family, or elder, can stay with a prime tenant for no more than 21 days in a calendar year. Violation can lead to eviction. And one of our INN members, I know for sure, lives in state Section 8 housing. He can say who he is, but we deal with this type of stuff.
Yep.
So, you know, family support doesn't hurt elders. So, you know, it says if you've worked a minimum wage job your whole life, you likely don't have much saved to keep working into your 70s or 80s, or even, you know, to stay in your home. Great. You know, people typically don't want to be a burden to their families, especially if they have health issues and they feel humiliated when they end up on their grandchild's couch. So they end up homeless, houseless, on the streets. And people who are doubled up are also not considered homeless by HUD because they don't meet HUD's definition of homelessness. Moreover, that's great. She says people tend to romanticize the idea of a multi-generational home because it's not always something poor people in overcrowded apartments can even do. They don't have a financial cushion. One thread gets pulled and everything unravels. And it's terrible. You know, capitalism is killing us all. The average Social Security.
I said that She's Homeless song stuck in my head now. You know?
Nice.
Da-dee-dee, da-dee-do, da-dee-dee.
Wow. The
Or
average
just me?
2023 retirement benefit for Social Security is $1,834.80 per month. The average monthly disability is just under $1,500 per month. That's not even enough to cover rent, let alone food and everything else that you need to live, including health insurance, which costs as much, if not more, than rent in most cases. And of course, all of these houseless people are, of course, not buying health insurance because you need an address to register your health insurance. Disabled and elderly people who did not.
Houseless people.
Yes, unhoused.
That's like a George Carlin bit, right?
No,
like,
that
they
was
call
a
them
George.
houseless people now.
Well, no, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. It's just the opposite because they said
Uh-huh.
it's not homeless. They don't need homes. They need houses. They're houseless. That's exactly what he said. They don't need homes. They need houses.
It's like,
Right,
yeah.
They are unhoused, and that is incredibly sad. But disabled and elderly people who did not work the required 40 quarters long enough to qualify can apply for supplemental Social Security, supplemental security income, or SSI. But the maximum monthly benefit for a single person is only $934, or elderly couples can receive a monthly grant of $1,391, which again isn't going to cover your even, subsidized or rent-controlled rent in most cases. There you go. For many people, this is less than their monthly rent. As of May 2023, Rent.com reports the national median rent is now $1,967. More incendiary that rents have risen 16.33% since 2021. Thank you, BlackRock. Thank you to Slava BlackRock, by the way. Reflecting an annual increase of about 8% or more than $250 per year. Right.
I'm sorry, don't talk about my mother like that.
Poverty rate for people over 65 went from 8.9% in 2020 to 10.3% in 21. And while 2022's 8.7% Social Security cost of living increase helped, it did little to stem the tide of housing loss for seniors. And again, my friend Kate would be able to tell you all about that. And she's had a terrible time of it. I feel awful when I see her on Facebook posting, and it's a reminder of how cruel this country can be to people that have spent their whole lives working, living, and being happy. And this woman, within the span of a year, lost her husband pretty suddenly to a heart attack. Then she lost her dog because she lost her housing. Then because she lost her housing, she lost her dog. And she had to rehome her dog. And then she ended up kind of living on people's couches. And then she got thrown out of her place and she ended up on the street. It's terrible, terrible. And now she's like applied for some kind of public housing, and she's got some kind of more positive situation now. But it's been a tough year for my friend Kate. So she said, so this person says that they've been in their apartment for 20 years. All right. That's a 56-year-old Brooklyn resident, Brett, for example. All right. 2 jobs as a security guard, lost his job, been in his apartment 20 years, live alone, pay $800 a month in rent, which is nothing in Brooklyn. New York is an expensive city, and during the worst of the pandemic, I couldn't pay my bills. I owe my landlord about $5,000, and I'm trying to work out a payment plan and reduce the arrears.
Jesus.
Yep. Trying to get a second job, but my landlord needs to cut me a break and let me pay off when I can. When I can. But the problem is that the landlord has bills piling up too.
You should have thrown "Give Me a Break" of that Kit Kat bar at least in there,
Well,
Like,
I thought you have that. Yeah. Got 2 jobs in one toilet, Teamwork is saying. Yes. Paulette, now she's another Brooklyn resident who's also fallen behind on hard times. She's in her 70s. The eviction threats have been active. She pays $9.90 a month during COVID. She had an accident, broke her clavicle. And this had her get behind on her rent. She owed the landlord about $12,000 from 2020 and 21. There was no rent forgiveness, folks, for these people. Who are these people? These are the people that this has been kicking the can down the road. This is the 10%, by the way. You know, Colin always talks about, what about
Do
the
you,
10%?
do you remember? Yes. Yes.
These are the 10%
Yeah,
right
I do
here.
remember. Yes.
All right, the 10%
Yeah, when Cory
of people.
Bush got to have a sleepover on the Capitol steps.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
All right, so
Yep.
I owe the landlord about 12 grand for
I
2020. Oh God, yep. That program is now closed. So the emergency rental assistance program did get them a year's back rent, but that program's now closed. Still owe the landlord a little bit. The rent never stops. That's right, every month. As Paulie famously said in Goodfellas, "Fuck you, pay me." That's right. First of the month, fuck you, pay me.
Yep.
Lost your job, fuck you, pay me.
And the rent
Kid got
is
sick, fuck you,
too
pay
damn
me.
high.
Yep. Paulette said that due to her immigration status, she can't receive Social Security, so she finds other ways to earn money. I help friends with chores, recycle bottles and cans, get help from the community food pantry, but if I get evicted, no, that can't happen. No, well, unfortunately, it does too often, but many people cannot stave off a marshal or stop an eviction. Karen lost her Carlisle, Pennsylvania home of 43 years in March of 2021 after a neighbor complained about the deteriorating condition of her single-family home. She couldn't even maintain the outdoor grounds, so 6 officers came in with building code officers, and my husband and I were given 2 hours to leave. Yeah, but I'm sure they were given plenty of notices and warnings by the state and by the county beforehand, but at the time they had 13 cats. The officials condemned the house, had to get special permission each day to go in and feed the animals and remove some personal belongings. She was able to rehouse the cats, and for 6 weeks they stayed in a hotel paid for by family, friends, strangers, who responded to a GoFundMe appeal. That's another thing that GoFundMe is paying for, is not just healthcare expenses, but, you know, elderly expenses that aren't being covered by Social Security and by whatever retirement, pensions, and anything else. Yeah. They begged the borough to help them fix the house and repair the structure. They refused. Her husband died 9 months to the day after they were evicted. Since leaving the hotel, Karen's been staying with one of her 3 children. She's comfortable, but it's been devastating. She went from being in the same place for 4 decades to being on an air mattress in her daughter's living room. It's lovely and it's miserable because this is not my home. I mean, I'm sorry to bring such like a depressing story here, but this is really what's going on. And we've got millions of people that fall into this situation and they're being forgotten about and nobody's talking about this and not enough people are trying to help them. Each January, Olivia, this woman says that HUD does a point-in-time count on one night to identify folks who are in shelters on the streets. That's nice. That's one night out of 30 or 31 a month. People who fly under the radar, including couch surfers like Karen, result in severe undercount. In addition, she says that the count only divides people into 3 categories: under 18, again, children on the street, those 18 to 24, and those over 24. And we want HUD to break the numbers into even smaller age categories. Their longitudinal studies do this, but they're not up to date. Their most recent is from 19 to 20, which is pre-pandemic. And we know how many evictions happened in and after the pandemic. So this leaves advocates and activists with little concrete data to go on. And I think that that's also part of the plan of BlackRock and Vanguard and all these major hedge funds, KKR, what's his name? Kravis, Cole, Kraft, and Reigns, I think it is. But anyway,
Blumenstein and Rubenthal.
Right, other way around. Blumenthal and Rubenstein, attorneys at law. Dun, dun, dun.
No, I did it. I did it right. I did it right.
I know you did. This leads, like they said, we know anecdotally that people are aging in homelessness, and we're seeing a lot more people over age 50 enter the system for the first time. Shelter providers tell us family members are literally dropping their loved ones off when they can't take care of them anymore.
Man, it's fucked.
Most shelters are ill-equipped and workers are burned out. They leave to take jobs at places like Home Depot, where they'll make more money and feel less stress. We're not keeping up with the need. And furthermore, yeah, because they're not like being paid like healthcare workers, and those are healthcare workers. Elderly care is healthcare. Rents rising fast. People on fixed incomes can't keep up. Like, we need some kind of...
And don't get started on mental care either. But,
senior, yeah, but we need like some
whatever.
kind of a housing Section 8 type of safety net specifically designed for seniors so that they don't need to worry about going homeless. I mean, look at that. Creating special housing for seniors. Here, so this is Lisa Glow. She's the CEO of Central Arizona Shelter Services in Phoenix. This is a 600-bed congregate care facility and provides beds for people of all ages, but staff are currently renovating a hotel that will be tailored exclusively to people over 55. It'll provide temporary transitional housing, and I know that there's a woman in Oceanside, California that's doing this as well. Glow says that ideally people will be placed in permanent homes within 90 days, but she recognizes that it may take significantly longer, along with 3 meals a day, mental health counseling, and transportation and medical and other appointments. They served over 1,700 people over the age of 62, which is nearly a third of the 6,650 that they served that year, and a 43% jump from 2021. Well, it's great that they're stepping up and they have something to fill the void there. And this woman who's doing this, Lisa, she says the system is broken on so many levels. Hospitals discharge people to CAS where they have nowhere else to go, and we've set aside a percentage of beds for hospital drop-offs. We'll do the same at the hotel when it opens at the end of this year. We provide respite, but we're not a medical facility. We're understaffed and under-resourced and have been for decades, and the droves of seniors who are becoming homeless are perplexing. It are not, because capitalism and hedge funds, and she probably doesn't realize that a lot of the commercial and residential multifamily real estate has been bought up by these hedge funds and large corporations because people aren't paying attention to this shit. Solutions are obvious, she said. We need rent controls and rent increase exemptions for seniors and the disabled. We need to build more affordable housing, and we need to provide low-income people at risk of eviction with a no-cost attorney. We also need a better social safety net to help with medical and mental health concerns. Amen to every single one of those solutions. And we have the resources to do it. We just can't send $150 billion to murder people in Ukraine and to murder Russians. Well, we need the political will.
We'll try, though.
Yep. Well, we need the political will to build housing for low-income seniors, and we need neighbors who welcome affordable housing and poor people into their communities. When there's a hurricane, FEMA rushes in and takes action, but homelessness has been an ongoing hurricane for decades, and there's been very little action to help people. She's eloquent. Now, again, that may be changing. They're starting to make some... We've got Shani Cass, who's an organizer with Hope, which is Housing Organizers for People Empowerment out of Brooklyn. That's a tenant-led group. And I know Reverend Annie Chambers out in Baltimore. She's doing some incredible things for residents in her community. But because they're retired, typically they have time to go to court and attend daytime protests. So that's good. But of course, we've seen cops push seniors out of the way, and we don't want to put seniors in harm's way. And 1 year ago, Truthout. Truthout is trying to raise $37,000 in the next 4 days. They need our help. They need everybody's help to keep going. Truthout is an important publication on the left and to independents. They are fully user-funded. They take no funding from corporations, and they take no advertising either, and that's really important. We need to support our ad-free, anti-corporate publications. And now our final story is Common Dreams. Julia, our friend Julia. Did anybody hear about what happened in Montana? Yes, Common Dreams is a Indie Media Award honoree. Excellent publication. They also, by the way, are doing their mid-year campaign to raise money. It's the end of the quarter coming up, so they have filings and they're looking for donations at commondreams.org. So support them there as well. They are Probably top to bottom, my favorite staff. I love Consortium News too. It's 1-2, Common Dreams Consortium News. I can name a lot of the people that write over at Common Dreams, and I probably know more of the staff writers over there. Julia is one of the excellent staff writers. Julia Conley. She's outstanding. Brett Wilkins and Jake Johnson and Andrea Hermanos and John Quayle. And then I saw that Craig Brown was actually making an appeal for donations. He's one of the founding members. But so train go boom and train go splish splash in Stillwater County, Montana. Segment. Yeah, almost. Well, you know what? You can probably add a trains smashing into something segment because there are a ton of these things happening. But there was a Montana train derailment, which raises fears of similar disasters on proposed Uinta Basin Railway in, I believe, Illinois. So, Julia, I was going to actually pick a corporate media story about this, and then earlier today I saw that Julia had put out a story, and I figured I'd grab that one instead. But a freight train derailment and the collapse of a bridge over the Yellowstone River in Montana on Saturday raised alarm as several cars carrying asphalt and molten sulfur tumbled into the river, prompting officials to take emergency measures and nearby water plants. Yay! The incident also brought to mind for some critics the Biden administration's plan, here we go, to move forward with a railway project along the Colorado River, one that could place the drinking water for 40 million people at risk as trains transport crude oil from eastern Utah's United Basin, it's Utah, not Illinois, to national rail lines. Good idea. The substances solidified quickly once exposed to the cold water in the Yellowstone River on Saturday, and Stillwater County Emergency Services told Chief David Stamey told the New York Times that the solidification could limit the potential harmful effects to the environment. Could, but likely won't. Sulfur, of course, is commonly used as an insecticide, a fungicide, rodenticide, and is often used in fertilizers. Sulfur is not a good thing.
Yep.
As a precaution, well, maybe, but water treatment plant officials in Yellowstone and Stillwater counties temporarily shut down water intake until all the material had flowed past Billings, which lies about an hour's drive east of the derailment site. Authorities also asked residents to conserve water. About 167,000 people live in Yellowstone County, while roughly 9,000 people live in Stillwater. Their Stillwater is about to become contaminated. What?
Yep. The ironic name.
Yes. It's about to become contaminated Stillwater. The freight train was operated by Montana Rail Link.
Don't you think?
Yep. Whose spokesman told the Times that 2 cars were also carrying sodium hydrosulfate, which can cause serious eye damage on exposure. Nice.
And chemical burns and Yep.
So neither of these cars have entered the water, and initial air quality assessments have been performed and confirmed there is no release associated with the 2 cars. 10 cars in total derailed. Montana Rail Link said no one was injured in the accident. Robert Bay, a retired engineering professor at the University of Cal Berkeley, told the AP, narrative managers for a corporate establishment, that recent heavy rains may have played a role in the collapse of the bridge. Quote, the high water flow translates to high forces acting directly on the pier and, importantly, on the river bottom. You can have erosion or scour that removes support from the foundation. High forces translate to a likelihood of a structural or foundation failure that could act as a trigger to initiate the accident. That's a nice way of saying that the thing collapsed. All right, the cause of the derailment and collapse are, of course, being investigated. All right, so you've got Ted Zukowski, and so he's talking about this. He tweets that the Uinta Basin Railway will funnel up to 5 trains 2 miles long daily along the Colorado River from Palisade to Granby, thus making this kind of accident more likely in Colorado. train derails into Montana's Yellowstone.
That's a lot of damage.
It certainly can be. So for about 100 miles of railroad, it's close enough to the river, take it to the river, that if you're sitting in a raft in the middle of it, you could throw a rock and hit the railroad. That's a good idea. So Democratic Senators Michael Bennett and John Hickenlooper, both heavy corporatists, and Representative Joe Negus, I've never heard of him, all of Colorado, told U.S. Transportation Secretary Mayo Pete in a letter earlier this year. They wrote him a very strongly worded letter urging him to oppose the project. The public-private alliance between United Basin Railway appears to have no plan to mitigate the harm of a potential accident or derailment in Colorado, which could particularly be difficult to address given Colorado's mountainous terrain. You know the shit's going through, right?
No train problems here.
You know the shit's going through. Because Mayo Pete never met a corporate solution that he didn't implement. So in addition to worsening...
How homophobic of you, sir.
How dare you? I need the...
How dare you?
I need that Richard Ojeda sound. How dare you?
How dare you? Best I can do is...
How dare you?
The best I can do.
Well, I'll take that for an environmental disaster here. So in addition to worsening the climate crisis by supporting the increased production of 350,000 barrels of oil per day, the Utah Clean Infrastructure Coalition has said in a fact sheet on the project that the heavy, long oil tanker trains used to transport crude oil pose greater risks of derailment and spills than other freight trains, and an increased risk of fire due to derailment and spilling of the combustible oil. And the only way I'm seeing this is in this article because I'm blocked by this nice man, friend of the show, David Sirota.
He's a nice guy. He's nice.
He's a nice boy. Not so much.
He's nice.
He's an arrogant piece of garbage, and we're not a big fan anymore.
Well, he's nice.
What's sad is I used to have nothing but the utmost heartfelt affection for that man. And he just turned around and peed all over that and everyone else that supported him. So he can fuck off.
He levered it.
Ah, I see what you did there. All right. Now, the county sheriff's office said that it was a great stroke of luck that none of the train cars that were carrying oil that would have polluted the Yellowstone. Was it really?
Yeah.
Did it really not spill at all? Who
did that? Who did that one?
That's Julia.
Good morning, Julia.
Nice. I built you this house and we're gonna go full throttle.
Everything you see behind me, I built everything. Every square inch from crown molding to chair rail to...
People are like, what's happening right now? They have